you to describe your profession.
I'm an artist.
Painter?
That's true.
Yes. So suppose we're going to ask Mr. Coates to come in here and act as the subject, and Mr. Mante, our technician, will give us your equipment.
Oh, surely.
And your charcoal, and here you are, ready to go.
Oh, fine.
Bill, go ahead.
Oh, thank you.
How's this?
That seems good. If you just look over this way.
The battery of psychological tests compressed into 4 short hours will not be shown here. Our attention will be focused on the experiences of our volunteer subject, Bill.
A mirror repeating itself or something?
Well, if you feel that way, it does. Anyhow, what I would like you to do now is to draw another picture of Paul, just like you did before. So many of the changes produced by this drug have to be described verbally. And here we have the advantage of an artist who is able to draw a sketch, and you can see all the changes just by simply observing. Just about right. Bill, suppose you take a look at these 2 pictures and compare them, and let's see if you have any comments.
Well, we're not very finished.
Do you see any big difference?
Not really.
No real big difference.
The eyes, for example, are the same to me. And the line of the nose is the same. And the mouth is still a sweet mouth.
Are you trying to reassure yourself that you're capable of drawing?
Yes, I think that's what I would like to do. I'd like to find out what reality I'm in. What reality I'm in. What reality I'm in. What reality I'm in.
Lysergic acid diethylamide, commonly known as LSD, was an accidental discovery by Swiss scientist Dr. Albert Hofmann. The original intention of the drug was to stimulate breathing and circulation, but the results didn't show such effects. Therefore, the research of LSD was abandoned for 5 years.
Hofmann returned to research LSD due to belief that the drug's potential wasn't fully explored. During the process, however, Hofmann accidentally got the solution on his hand and soon began to feel strange, feeling effects of remarkable restlessness in a dreamlike state, seeing distorted images, shapes, and many rays of color, while hearing
abstract sounds and strange voices.
The next day, Hofmann purposely dosed himself with 10 times the LSD than today's typical minimum dose. He began to panic and asked his laboratory assistant to call a doctor. The doctor found nothing wrong with Hofmann, besides the fact that his pupils were dilated.
Soon his panic was replaced with a feeling of euphoria, once again seeing beautiful colors and extraordinary shapes. After testing on animals, the research was handed off to institutes and doctors across the nation to experiment on healthy and mentally ill subjects. The results were compelling enough to patent LSD under the name Delsid and was sold in 25 microgram tablets.
Several years later, America became aware of a growing movement called the psychedelic movement. This movement relied on drug use, strange music, and multimedia experiences to transcend reality and bring a higher state of consciousness to those who participated.
The electric Kool-Aid acid test is the story of how this movement began, with one person, Ken Kesey, and his band of followers, the Merry Pranksters. Kesey is a talented novelist who recently published his first book. While living in Palo Alto and attending Stanford's creative writing program, Kesey signs up to participate in a drug study sponsored by the CIA. The drug they gave him is Hofmann's accidental discovery, LSD.
Under the influence of LSD, Kesey begins to attract a band of followers. They're drawn to the altering states they can achieve while on the drug, but they are also drawn to Kesey, who is a charismatic leader. They call themselves the Merry Pranksters and begin to participate in wild experiments at Kesey's house in the woods of La Honda, California.
These experiments with lights and noise are all designed to create a wild psychedelic experience while on LSD. They paint everything in neon colors, and though the neighbors are skeptical of their doings, LSD is legal and there's little they can do.
The pranksters buy a bus, which they paint in day-glow colors and name Further. Along the way, they take trips on acid and film the entire thing.
Back in California, Kezi's profile as a leader of this new countercultural movement begins to rise. He befriends the Hells Angels motorcycle gang and even leads a retreat of Unitarian church leaders. Much of what the pranksters are doing is thought by others to resemble a new religious movement.
To get the word out about the new understanding of life that the pranksters achieve while high on LSD, they start acid tests. Acid tests are huge parties where everyone takes LSD and transform reality into a state of understanding among participants. The acid test grows so popular that Casey becomes a leader of this new movement.
Soon, however, Kezi is busted by the authorities for possession of marijuana. He flees the country to Mexico to avoid jail time. He is joined by the pranksters, but they simply cannot recreate the feeling of the acid test that they held back in California. Kezi decides to sneak back into the U.S., attempting to stay unnoticed until he is finally caught by the FBI.
When Kezi goes before a judge, he tells him that in California he had a vision of moving beyond acid. Surprisingly, the judge lets him out to prepare for this great acid test graduation, in which the pranksters will try to transcend time and space but without the help of the drug. This graduation ends up being a total failure, and though Kezi and the pranksters believe they might have graduated from acid, no one follows along this time.
Kezi ends up eventually doing his jail time and settles in Oregon with his family. The merry pranksters separate, and the bus Further is left to rust beside his house in Oregon.